In this video tutorial, we're going to be learning how to build a stylish modern website with multiple sliders. Each slider is connected to one another. I'm going to be explaining you guys in detail, step by step, how to build this, starting from the Swiper.js, then the HTML, CSS, and also the JavaScript that we would need to build this slider. So if you're new to the channel, if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure you turn the notifications bell on so that you're notified whenever I upload a new video. And again, thanks who supported me so that I could reach 1,000 subscribers. Thanks to all. And so I'm explaining this video in depth as most of you guys wanted me to have a voiceover and you wanted me to explain this in detail so that you guys can understand and learn. Now, the source code of this project will be down in the description, so you guys can download that, play around, and use it to whatever need you want. So yeah, that's all. Let's get started and let's learn how to build this. Now, in this index.html file, you can see that I have some CSS inside of the style tag. So this is the broiler CSS, which I grabbed from a demo Swiper.js file. So when we do the CSS for the main site, we can add that in a different style sheet. So just for explanation, we're going to write that as of now. Now you can go to the Swiper.js website and you can click here, getting started. And here we're going to grab the CDN for our Swiper.js. So you can grab these and then you can paste it in your index.html file. So after you're done with pasting, so now let's go to the demos section. So here in the resources, you'd find this demos, wherein you would see all different examples of different types of sliders using Swiper.js. I can click on this core and you're going to get the entire code of this slider, how it works, and you can just copy and paste it. So what I did is I just copied some of the stuff of the CSS from top and then I just pasted it in. So to get started with Swiper, first, you need to add a class of Swiper, within which you have this Swiper wrapper, which wraps all the different slides. And then within which you have a Swiper slide, which is basically the entire slide that you see. And inside of this, you can add the content. Now, in this case, I'm going to just write slide 1. I'm going to add the rest 8 slides. You can see we have this. Now, this doesn't have a width and height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write Swiper and then I'm going to give it width 100% and height of 100 pixels. Now keep in mind that this is just for explanation. So later on when we build it for the final project, we're going to do it in a different style sheet. Now I'm going to paste it 2 more times since we have 3 sliders in total. So we have 2 thumbnails. So for the third one, we're going to add thumbs2 as the class name. For the second one, we're going to add thumbs1, and then for the main slider, we're going to just call it slider. Now you would see that for the first one, I'm going to be adding here 2 icons to move back and forth. So this has already been provided by Swiper.js. So you can just add these divs with these specific classes, Swiper button next and Swiper button prev, and you would have those icons. Now this is still not working since we need to initialize this using JavaScript. I'm going to call here a variable and call it Swiper and then write new Swiper, within which I'm going to target the slider since we're going to first initialize our first slider or the main slider with the class of slider. Now you can add any class name to your slider and that class name should be added here. Now here some of the stuff are already been provided by Swiper.js, so you just need to add those like space between the slides. Also, you want it to work when you move the scroll and also the speed, basically the transition between one slide to the other. And then I'm going to add this navigation, which are those 2 buttons, left and right. Now on clicking, you would see that our slider is working. So these stuff are already provided, so you can just add those. And now I'm going to be creating another for the thumbnail. So this is going to be for the thumbnail 1, which would have space between. And this time we have this slides per view 6. So since I want the slider to have 6 slides per view, so that we can scroll and have 6 slides each. All right. And then we're going to have another slider for the thumbnail, for the second thumbnail with 1 slide. Okay. Now, if you see that whenever you slide the main slider, there is no connection between the other 2 slides. Now, if you see our finished project, which is deployed in HarryOUI.netlify, you would see that whenever I change the main slider, you would see that the slider on the left and also on the bottom right, you'd see that they have changes. So this is because all 3 of the sliders are linked to one another. Now, if you see the left one, whenever I click on any specific slide, the main slider as well as the one on the bottom right gets changed to that specific slide. Now, as I've already told that the bottom one focuses on the slide that will be coming next from the one that is active. So in the thumbnail one, what we can do is whenever we have this click function, so these stuff are already provided by Swiper. So you can just write here this, inside of this on, you can specify a function named as click, which would mean that whenever we have a click function to any of our slide, now this slide specifically points to the slide of the swiper with the class of thumbnail1 or thumbs1. So whenever we click, we want the swiper, which is our main slide, to slide to a specific index. Now in this case, it should move to the slide that we clicked. So you get that by thumbs.clickedIndex. Okay, so whenever you click onto that, it moves to that. So this clicked index is already been provided by Swiper.js. If I just console out thumbs1.clickedIndex, and let's go to the one that we're having currently, you would see that whenever I click onto any of the slide, you would see the index. Now, since it starts from 0, you would see that slide 6 has an index of 5 and slide 1 has an index of 0. Now, as soon as you click, you would see that the main slider also starts moving. So this is because we have added the feature of on-click. Now, you want this feature to also work whenever you change the slide, all right? So there's another function known as slide change, so which gets called whenever you change the slide, something like this. So whenever we change the slide, we want the swiper, the main slider, to slide to the active slide for the thumbnail 1. Now, when I change it, you would see that we have slide 4 active. So the main slider also moves to slider 4, slide 7, slide 1, and so on. Now we're going to add this feature to our thumbnail 2 as well. So we're going to have this click function, and then this time instead of thumbs1, we would have thumbs2.clickedIndex. Now here, since we already have this slide 1, so if we click, we won't see any changes. But let's bring this slide 2. And now when we click on the slide 2, you would see that the main slide, which is slide 1, would get changed to slide 2. So later on in our CSS, we would do some changes, and we would have, instead of the main slide or the active slide, we would have the next slide that is yet to come. And then also we would have this on slide change. So whenever the second slide changes, you also want the main slider to change as well. Bring in, and then the main slide changes. All right. Now, whenever we make changes to the thumbnails, the main slider changes, but we also need to have these features on our main slider as well. So whenever we change the main slider, we want this to reflect on the thumbnail 1 and thumbnail 2. So here in our swiper, which is the main slider, here we're going to have that slide change function. And then whenever this is called, whenever the slide changes, we want the thumbnail 1 to change to the active index. So whichever index is main slider active, that slide you need to focus on for the thumbnail 1. As you can see, whenever the first one changes, you would see that it reflects onto the second one. Now, you also need to do this for thumbnail too. As the main slide changes, both the slides changes. All right, so I'm done explaining about the slider, so how the slider would work. Now you can see that in the index.html file, I have removed the HTMLs for the Swiper.js, since we're going to be adding those according to the design that we have. And also I have added the style.css file, which is empty as of now. So inside the body, I'm going to create a main tag within which I'm going to add a container which would hold all the three sliders. First, we're going to add the first swiper, and we're going to add the class of slider, since that is what we're referring to the main slider, and then a wrapper, and then swiper slide. Now, first we're going to design for one swiper slide, and then we're going to paste in all the different slides. Inside of this, I'm going to add two divs with the class of BG light and BG gray. So now if you see the finished project, you would see that on the right side you have the dark, and on the left you have the light background. So those would be for the BG light, BG dark. And then for this wave, we have a div with the name of wave, when I have added the image. And then another div with the class of image for the copper kettle that you see. And then I'm going to paste in the image. We don't see anything since I haven't added the images. Just a sec, I'll add the images in the folder. Okay, so now I have added the images. So you can see that we have all the 7 images, including the wave. So I've added images/1.png. Now with that, if I show you the demo page, you'd see this is how it looks. Okay, so then we need to add the headings. So there are 2 headings, one is light, one is dark. So the light one says Hario, and then the dark one says Buono. So I'm going to add that, and then a title which would say copper kettle, and then we have the pricing, and then the button. So pricing says $160. So I'm going to add a div with the name of price, and then we'll add $160, and then a button which says buy. Now we're going to work on the specification sections. So you're going to see that I'm adding a div with the class of specs, and now each specifications would be inside of a single div which would say spec. So since there are multiple such spec, so I'm going to add multiple divs. Now each spec has 2 sections. One is inside of a paragraph, and then one inside of span. Now the one inside of the paragraph would be the bold one, and then the span would be the smaller one. Now you'd see that I've also added a superscript tag so that I can write the ML on top of 900, right? Now we're going to style our first slider. So as you can see, I have some default styling going on. So I have margin padding to 0 and box size border box. And I've also added 3 fonts, out of which I'm not using this bubblegum sans, since I was just playing around seeing which font looked good. So we're going to be using Barlow and that Della Gothic. Now for the body, I've set width and height to 100% or 100 viewport height, 100 viewport width. And I've set the default font as Barlow. And I've also removed overflow to hidden, since I do not want anything to be flowing out, so I don't need that scroll bar as well. And then for the main tag, I've given it width and height of 100% so that it takes entire width. And then display flex, since we also will be having a nav bar. So this container, which is inside of this main tag, is set to having width of 95%, since the rest 5% would be taken by the nav bar, which we're going to be adding later on. And then the margin left auto, since I want the container to be pushed on the right side so that we have space on the left for the nav bar. Now we're going to target our slider. We're going to give it width and height of 100%. And now we're going to start with our swiper slide inside of the slider. So this would need to have width and height of 100%. And then also position relative, since we're going to be absolutely positioning some stuff within this slider. Now we're going to target the background light and background dark. We're going to position them absolutely, and then we're going to give it top 0 and then height 100% and width 50%, so that each take half, like 50-50. and then z index of -1 so that it is underneath all the different content that we're going to have above this. And then I've set the background light on the left and then background dark on the right side. Now you'd see that this background light is same as the background that we're using for the main. Now we're going to target the slider image, and then we're going to position it absolutely. Now keep in mind that this is not the image, this is the image div or the class of image that we're having. So we're gonna position it top and left and also translate it a bit. And then the image inside of this div would set a height and width of 550 pixels, and then also object fit to contain. Now we're going to target the different light and dark heading that we have, and then we're going to give it some font sizes and also font weight, a bit of text align, and also we're going to be adding that in the center, and a bit of text shadows, and also would increase the font weight a bit. So we're going to do this for both heading light and heading dark. Now we're going to target the wave that we have, and then we're going to position it absolutely and would align it top 42% left, and also we're going to transform and translate it and provide it a z index of -1. Now this also needs to have width and height, so we would also have width and height for the images inside of the wave. Now we're going to style the title, price, and button. So we're going to start off with the title. We're going to text align it at the center. Since we want it at the center, we're going to give it some font size, a color, and also a bit of margin top. I'm going to target the price. We're going to text align it again. We're going to have a margin top, font size, and then the font family would be Della Gothic since we wanted to have that bold weight. And then also the color would be this dark bluish green, whatever color that we're using. And then for the button, we're going to style it by giving a display block and also margin top 20 pixels and margin inline of auto. And then we're going to add font size, a bit of border, and also a color. And then the cursor needs to be pointer, so we're going to add that as well. And then we're going to style the specs. So we're going to position it absolutely, giving it a bottom and also left of 25%. And then we're going to add a padding top and bottom 20 pixels and left and right 30 pixels with background, and then also display flex with flex direction column so that everything or all the different spec inside of it can be stacked on top of each other. And also we're going to give it a gap of 20 pixels. Now we're going to give it z index and also a color, and a padding left needs to be more, so we're going to add that specifically and give it 60 pixels. Now we're going to style the different paragraph tags inside of the specs and also the span. So we're going to also give it a bit of text shadow, so we're going to do that, and we also will style the span tag and give it an opacity of 0.5. So with that, I think the spec should be done. Now the text that we have which says specs, so we're going to add a pseudo element, and then we're going to write content inside of his specs, and then we're going to position it absolutely, and we'll add the writing mode as vertical, left to right, and then text duration to upright, and then we're gonna position it top and left, and would give the font family as Gothic, color, and then the text shadow as usual. So now that we're done with styling our swiper slide, I'm gonna paste in another slide, and as you can see on scroll, we can see that the slides changes. All right, so there are, I think, 4 more. So let's paste a few. Now, after we're done adding all the different slides, you will see that some images of the slide are bigger in size and also are positioned way off the regular placement that the images should have. So I'm going to go to that specific image and add style tag, and we'll translate and also scale the image down if necessary. With that, the images should look perfect. Okay, So we're done with the first slider, and we have also scaled down all the different images that was necessary so that to match up the different slides that we are having. So we're done with our main slider. Now let's start with thumb one, that is the left side thumbnail slider. We're going to write a div with the class of swiper, and we're going to give it a class of thumbs1, and then a swiper wrapper, within which we're going to add the swiper slide, which would hold the slide. Now this swiper slide would have an image class, within which we're going to have the real image of the kettle. Now, since I've already added overflow hidden, anything beyond 100 viewport height or 100 viewport width won't be visible, so you won't be able to see the different slides that we're adding here. Okay. Now we're going to target the thumbnail one. We're going to position it absolutely. We're going to give it top and width and also height. As you can see, these are a bit visible. Now we're going to give it Z index of 100, and then box shadow and RGB of black with opacity of 0.1. And then we're going to target the swiper slide. We're going to give it width and height 100%, and then display grid and place content to center so that each content within the swiper slide is center aligned. Then we can target the image inside of the image div, and then we're going to give it width and height and also object fit of contain. Now, since I've already written here direction as vertical, you would see that all the different slides inside of thumbnail one are stacking on top of each other. Now, if you don't have this direction vertical, it would appear horizontal, which is the default one, as you can see. So to have them stack, you can have direction as vertical. As you can see, whenever we click onto any of the images, you'd see that our main slider moves to that specific slide. Okay, but there's an issue with that, and that is the slide that is activated isn't indicated in our thumbnail slider. So to do that, if we inspect the active image, you would see that we have a class which says swiper slide active. So what we can do is we can slide this in we can add style to this swiper slide active. We can have a background with linear gradient, just so we can show that this is activated. There's an issue with this, and that is if we click on other slides, this swiper slide active isn't getting added to the other slides. So the reason for that is because we have 6 slides per view. So the first one is always the one that gets activated. So to solve this, we need to add some custom JavaScript. First, let's resize the images by using the style tag and giving them scale and also translating along the y-axis a bit. Now, whenever the main swiper or the slider changes, I want to grab all the different swiper slide inside of the thumbnail one. And then after I grab those, I want to run a for each loop wherein I take each slide and then the index of that slide, and then I add class name to all the different slides that I've just grabbed on swiper slide. So by default, all the different slides already have swiper slide. So I want to add only the class of swiper slide to all the different slides. Okay. So this would mean that this swiper slide active class would also get removed as soon as this runs. But this isn't working since we have this thumbnail too. So I'll just comment it out since it is issuing an error. Now, as soon as slide change function runs, you would see that the one that was activated a moment ago is nowhere seen, since there is no swiper slide active class as of now. So we want to add swiper slide active to the only slide whose index is equal to the index of the swiper active index. So whichever index the main slider has, if that index is equal to the index of the thumbnail slide, then only that slide would have the swiper slide active class. Now let's comment out and let's see. So when we click on the second one, or when you scroll down, the slide that is active, only that slide has the swiper slide active. And you can see the linear gradient background on the back. Now we're going to build our thumbnail 2, which is the final slider that we have on the screen. So for this, we're going to have, again, a div with the class of swiper, and we're going to add thumbs2 with swiper wrapper, within which we're going to have slide, which would have a title. Now this title would have Hario, V60, hopper, and also the icon. So Hario would be inside of span, then 2 paragraphs for V60 and copper, and then the icon of arrow right, and then the image inside of the image class. Now I'm going to be pasting it 5 more times since I have 6 slides in total. Okay, now let's style these. Now for the thumbnail 2, we only want the slide that will be coming next to be visible. So the slide that is active, we don't want that to show. So if you see here, in the JavaScript, I have written for the thumbnail 2, we have slides per view as 1, meaning that the one that is active, or whichever slide the main screen is, or the main slider is showing, only that slide will be shown. But we don't want the active one, we want to show the next one. So if I add display none for the second one, for the first one, the active one, it would mean that the second one would now be visible. Now here you would see that I have added swiper slide active, last child as display grid. Now you'd see that for the last slide that we're gonna have, the last slide would have no thumbnail to be shown for next, since that is the last and we do not have any more slides left. So for that, we want the last slide to show itself as the thumbnail. So we have set the display as grid. So the last slide would be shown twice as thumbnail. Basically, that is what we're having. Now we're going to style the thumbnail 2. We're going to give it position absolute, width and height, and also would position it. And then the swiper slide, we're going to again add display grid, and then place content center, and then position relative. Now for the image inside of thumbnail 2, we're going to give it width and height, and also object fit and margin left. Now for the title and span, we're going to have some styling. We're going to position them and also add a bit of text shadows to the span and also the paragraph inside of the title. Now for the icons, we're going to set the font size 30 pixels and also absolutely position them, have them z-index, and also the color. I don't think I've added the CDN. Okay, so we're using remix icons. Let's do one thing. Let's add the CDN remix icon. Here you can just search remix icon CDN.js, and you'll be taken to this page. And you can click on this min.css and you can paste it here. Let's save. And you can see. Okay. And also change the title to Hario. Okay. Now, when you click on this slide, it takes you to the next slide that will be coming. Okay. So for the fourth one, you see the fifth as the slide, but for the fifth one, you see fifth as the thumbnail itself. So basically the last one is getting repeated. Okay. Now we need to add the animation that we're having in the finished project. So to get this animation, what you can do is you can come to swiperjs.com, getting started, and you're going to go to this demos page. Here you can scroll on the left and you can go to effect creative and click on this core. You see this effect, you can click on this core. You'll be taken to the page which has the code for the slider. Now here you would see we have different type of sliders with different creative effects. Now I'm going to be taking the first one. So there are a couple others as well. So you can choose whichever you want. And then I'm going to come down, and for the first one, I'm going to grab from here to this. And I'll copy this and I'll paste it in my main slider. And let's format the document. And you see on scroll, you see the slide change and have that effect. Now, if you see for the thumbnail 2 slider as well, some images are bigger in size. So we're going to do, again, we're going to resize them using style, and we're going to scale them down a bit, and also we're going to translate why some of the images. Now with that, you can see that the images are now fine and look well. Now all that is left is to add the nav bar. So we're going to add a nav with logo, which would have H, and then a menu, which would have the horizontal bar chart, and then search for the search icon, and then socials, which would have the social media link inside of anchor tag. And I'm going to add Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So we have these. Now in the CSS, I'm going to add the nav, which would have a z-index. So we would need the position relative, and we're going to give it width of 5% since the container is 95, as we have discussed, and then height of 100%. Then display flex, and then the flex direction to column, since we want everything to stack. And then also we want gapping, so we would have space between, and also align items to center. Now we would also need a bit of padding top and bottom, and color and font size. Now we would add a bit of box shadow to the nav along with border right, as you can see. Then we're going to target the logo. We're going to give it font family, font size, and also dark color. And then we're going to target the socials with display flex, flex direction to column, with justify content, align items to center, and a bit of gapping, as you can see. And then the anchor tag within the socials with color white and text decorations to none. Now with that, we have finished our project. Hope it was helpful. Hope I could explain everything in detail. If there is any doubt regarding the project or regarding the explanation, you can always comment down below. So these videos take a way long time, almost around a week. So yeah, hope it helps, and the source code is down in the description so you guys can download and play around with that. So yeah, you can share the video with your friends and family. If you're new, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. So till then, bye bye. Meet you guys in the next video.